and welcome to A Conversation with Rad. And I am your host, Radcliffe. And today we'll be diving into some captivating discussion where every episode will bring you fresh insight, candid conversations. A few things we'll be discussing today: lifelong friendship, career journeys, connections that shape our lives. So let me introduce you to our next guest. Our next guest is Trevor Williams. Hey, Trev, welcome.
Hey, what's going on?
Not much. Thank you for joining. And I was just,
You're welcome.
outlining a few things for our audience who might be joining us. So one of the things that I wanted to touch on, and I'm just giving them a little bit of background on the guests. So you were one of the original members of the bar, the Black Alumni Reunion Review, all right? That was inspired by a member of the group. You were also a radio personality at Buffalo State, right? Where you host a radio show, WBNY 91.3 FM, as Trevor Dane.
Yes, sir.
As well as a member of the Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity, a historical Black Greek letter fraternity established in 1911.
Yes.
So, welcome.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us.
No problem.
So,
Anytime.
So one of the things I wanted to start out with was just tell our audience where you're coming in from. What, if you're local, and probably a fun, fact about yourself.
Meaning, you talking about the whole Buffalo thing or school, like you talking about from high school or from Buffalo?
Just a fun fact about yourself. We'll get into school and stuff like that. So right now, I'm just introducing you to where you're calling in from, and just a little something you want to put out there. You're one of the greatest baller soccer player that never got signed.
I'm a top Arsenal fan. One of the top ballers around here, living in Queens. Married last year. Thank you. And, been working at the same job going on 30 years now. So, that's the fun fact, I guess. Born in Jamaica, Kingston, Jamaica. Not just saying it, for real. And kind of grew up in New York and Buffalo, really. Became a man in Buffalo, New York, in college. Yeah.
Nice. I think I should put this out there so everybody knows this part of it. Trevor and I are brothers, right? So we might get into some conversation that, like, I know he's the biggest Arsenal fan that a lot of people wouldn't know, so those type of fun things, so I wanted to make sure that our audience knows, that, we're related, because we're talking about going back where the friendship starts in Buffalo and stuff like that. So for you and I, it's a little different than most people.
Definitely.
And I mean, I can almost fall into that category as well, because even though while I was at school there, a lot of people didn't know we were brothers, right? Because we had our own lives.
Yeah. Yeah. We kind of did our own thing. Separately.
Our own thing. And thank you for allowing me, to grow there in my own, personal way, instead of saying, you're Trevor Dane's brother, because Trevor Dane was a big name.
Yeah, exactly. That you didn't use that influence, from the being known from the radio, and also the fraternity, just being a pretty much a personality all around, that you could kind of take advantage of certain things, especially at that age. And for sure I did, but yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I did benefit from some of it, because I get to go to Crimson and Cream, be at a lot of the fraternity parties without a lot of people knowing that we were brothers. But I had that inside track, on being able to know that this is going on, get in, and those type of things. So
definitely,
definitely.
Yeah, and you pretty much had access to the whole fraternity life without even being in it, really, if you will. Even, you know what I'm saying? Not even that. Not to say that you're interested in it, but you experience a lot of it from, just being around me, if you will.
Yes. Yeah, and I was definitely thankful for that.
Mhm.
So I definitely appreciate it. So I'm gonna I'm gonna pivot from myself to you and the group that was there, because you guys were there, and I've said this in the previous podcast. I'm in my 40s. You guys have been there almost 40 years. According to this podcast and the groups, I'm in my 40s. Government document says something else. All right. So,
Yeah. So the government be lying.
But there was an original set of you guys, a crew. I wouldn't want to call it a crew, but more of a brotherhood.
Yeah.
That was there.
I don't mean to cut you, but interestingly enough, I'm one of the founding members of the Caribbean Student Organization. Including Eves, a couple of people that were around at that time. We used to meet. We started meeting in a room until we were recognized on campus and everything. So that's a that's a and then that's something that I really don't talk about much, but that's something I was involved with at Buff State.
But it's definitely something that should be talked about, because
Definitely. Interestingly enough, my
after you guys
sister-in-law, I'm not going to
established
say
it,
any names, she had a birthday party. There was a big thing going on about.
followed
And
the
I was like,
members.
wait a minute. You have an original, member here. And I was like, it was a black thing, so I just left it alone. Cutting the black man out of things. You know what I mean? I'm used to it.
It just comes natural.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but outside of the official organization, that you were in, there's a group of you guys,
Oh, yeah.
the
Yeah. Like you said, a
Franks,
brotherhood.
the Tennyson, the Brotherhood.
Outside of the whole fraternity life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys had something.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, just quickly, you guys had something that lasts the test of time, because I've actually mentioned this to individuals outside of this brotherhood, right? And when I'm saying brotherhood, I don't want somebody to hear this and think we're talking about a cult or something like that. We're talking about, a set of brothers who are like family.
Like-minded people.
Blood. Not by blood, but by common interest.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So just touch on that a little bit, as far as
yes.
guys.
Yes. So interestingly, what happened was that there's a program called the EOP Seek program in Buffalo, and a lot of us at that time, they had a 6-week summer program. So whoever basically who went to that 6-week program, we sort of developed relationship prior to even starting, if you will, college in the fall. So, but come the fall, you just have people who move to different directions, if you will. People group up with other people for whatever reasons. But for some reason, this group of people, we just lost a member last year, Tennyson, rest in peace. For some reason, we just kind of got together and we did all the silly things that teenagers used to do, did, in college and so on. Together, we always kind of hung out together, especially at my apartments. It was like a meeting place, and we just from what we're doing now on Saturdays, we basically used to just do it on the weekends in person, because we were all college students, and we didn't have responsibilities, if you will, outside of our cheap apartments in Buffalo. And the 40 ounce or whatever it is that people were drinking. I was listening in earlier in one conversation, and the Bronx on the 4 dude was talking about Labatt's. Dabbled there, but 40 ounce was the thing at that time. Could even touch that now if I wanted to.
So it seemed like Trev
But yeah,
might be
and so yeah, we just got
having a
together and
slight technical
became
difference,
one.
difficulty.
It froze.
Oh, we seem to have lost Trev. Let me see if he's gonna jump back in and pick up where he left off on the conversation. So while we wait, just give me a second to get something going.
Sorry for the technical difficulty with Trevor losing his internet connection. We are trying to get him back to the program.
Yeah, my internet went out for some reason. I don't understand what happened. For some reason, I don't
Yeah,
understand.
kind of
what
lost
happened.
you
Can you hear
a
me?
little bit. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I was there talking, and then I realized that you were frozen. I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on? Then it said that internet connection was kind of low. So yeah, I'm not sure where we cut off. We could kind of like because I was talking before I realized that it was off.
Yeah, man. Starting back at your apartment, I think that's where you started going out.
Okay, yeah. So
where you gathered everybody.
my apartments kind of were the meeting. Okay, yeah. So spot, if you will, the clubhouse. where.
So
Uh-huh.
hold on.
Yes.
You're
Yes.
okay. Good. Your voice is going in and out.
Can you hear me better now?
Now I can.
Can you hear me better now? No, it's still going in and out. No, it's still going in and out.
There's a delay.
Oh,
A massive delay.
oh wow.
No.
I'm not sure why.
So
I have to find my headphones. I have some headphones. I don't know where they are, but I gotta find. Maybe that will work better.
when you say something, it's like a second later before I hear you.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it has anything to do with the fact that we just refreshed and got back on.
No, but I was hearing you. I was hearing you perfectly though. So
Well, now there's a delay.
let me pause it for a second.
Yeah. Why?
Yeah. So as you're saying, about your apartment, that was the meeting place for most of the brothers.
Yeah, that's kind of like whatever we did during the day or whatever. Even before we go out, we sort of just get together and just chat, hang out, have some beers, have a good time, go out, or just chill right there and have a impromptu party with some girls and and
Is that on Forest or which one of the
both
apartments?
actually on Forest and on Parkdale. Those were two.
Parkdale.
Not and also Richmond.
the one that
Richmond was the main party place because of the space.
Okay.
The basement.
But Parkdale.
The basement. Yeah.
You had that elevated
Exactly.
where you go up
the steps. Yeah.
Yes,
Exactly.
I remember that.
That was another party spot. I used to have a party during the spring in the backyard, and I charge $1 all you could drink, all you could eat. That used to be a good one. So in that backyard. But yeah, my places are always like
I need to.
Go ahead.
Sounds like I need to call Gina and confirm, if Uki really met her there.
Oh yeah, well,
Uki
that was
a
owes
party
me.
house.
A few people owes me. I don't like to call people's names, but yeah, Uki owes me. Because yes, he did meet Gina at my apartment. Like I said, my apartment was a meeting spot. And if he's in the audience, I hope he can deny or confirm. It's all good. But yeah, so that was one good thing that came out of it, is that fortunately too, some of the people that used to hang out there and met their spouses there are still together, and that was a good thing. It kind of was a space for us to sort of just be us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because in Buffalo, if I guess I came a little later, but there wasn't a lot of space for us, right? Because you couldn't go out certain places and stuff like that because Buffalo was really, really racist at that time.
Imagine when I got there. You know what I mean? I got there in it felt like the 1800s. Horse and buggies and everything was running around. But interestingly enough, I'm like, that's like trying to exaggerate it. But at the same time, Buffalo compared to New York City is like night and day. One of the things that struck me that when I went there was in the Woolworth. At the time, now I'm dating myself. I'm talking about Woolworth. In the Woolworth, he had Woolworth all over the place. But like when I went to the Woolworth in Buffalo, they had shotguns in the back of the Woolworth just selling, and I'm like, what the heck is this? Uh, uh, so it was a culture shock. But I adjusted, and I actually like Buffalo. And I spent a lot of time there. But and the draw for me for Buffalo, what got me to Buffalo really was the fact that I had family in Canada. We have family in Canada, a lot of family there. So I felt like, okay, if I'm what roughly 500 miles away from the city, but at the same time, I'm less than 100 miles away from family on the other side of the border in the 51st state.
The 51st state to be.
It wasn't a 51st state back then, but you had to deal with border guards in the olden days.
It was an easy crossing though. You were able to just walk across there, showing your school ID.
Yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
you're
Oh
good.
yeah. We used to go across a lot because there's a lot to do either in Toronto and not even that far. Fort Erie, right there was a lot of what these kids used to call strip clubs that these guys used to go to, which is like as soon as you cross the border. I heard.
Yeah, I don't know any
10
of
minutes
those
away
guys.
from Buffalo. But others could speak more on that.
Won't call no names.
No, sir.
But with all the guys that were there, but there were so many different people, your difference there. What would you say are some of the things that made you guys find common ground and became what you are today? Because I can see this from the conversations we're having on Saturdays. It's like for the I'm going to say 30 years because that's how long I've left there, but you guys have been there longer, and it seemed like it was just yesterday. You guys were having conversations.
Exactly. Well, I think what brought us together is sports, one, and politics. You know what I mean? And the fact that we were basically the minorities at the college, we tend to, we just kind of drew together, in numbers that kind of made us more comfortable, if you will. But at the same time, yeah, I think our politics, the way we look at the world, sports basically that brought us together as brothers initially.
Yeah. As I said, we've been, diving into some stuff in memory lane and stuff like that. But you mentioned this earlier, but I want to talk about Tennyson a little bit. A brother that we lost last year, a person who is genuine in his personality, genuine in how he talks to you, how he, I think he cares for people. He's just a genuine person. Again, you knew him way before I did.
Yeah.
And the things that he used to do for me, like I mentioned earlier that he got me into a party where, when I just got there, I'm a young and I'm still wet behind the ear, and I probably shouldn't be drinking, and he got us where we need to get, so he's that type of person.
Yeah.
So you have, tell me some stuff, from your perspective.
Yeah. It's what's interesting about Tennyson is that I remember Tennyson saying to me on the phone, he said, you know what? And it's kind of ironic that he passed, because he said, I would hate for one of my boys, one of my boys to pass or something to happen to them, and I could do something, and they didn't come to me, like they didn't say to me, hey, I'm in trouble, or hey, this is going on, and so it's kind of ironic that he passed, but Tennyson, I remember when I first met Tennyson, we were in the summer program, the SEEK program together, and we didn't like it. Well, I didn't like him because he was, at that time, he was kind of keeping me off somebody that I was trying to get to. And
He was on the blocker.
I felt like he was playing too much defense. And so, I was even, so I even said to him, I remember saying, let's go outside and fight. Let's go outside. Tennyson is in his way. I'm not going to fight you, and that's him. He was serious about that. He didn't stop playing the defense, but he just let me know that, you're going to be fighting yourself. And, eventually we just became, over time, we just became very close. Is like I said at his funeral, he was like a brother, because no matter what, he was always looking out for people. And I remember, like, whenever I would get an apartment, sometimes we'd furnish our apartment from the streets. You know what I mean? And if Tennyson was driving by somewhere and he saw something that could work in your apartment, he's gonna purchase it from the streets and bring it to you. And so he was just so loving. He wanted to see everybody happy. I'm really happy that I got to spend some time with him, to see him at my wedding. He was like, he was so happy about that. Like he would call me like every other day or something and talk about, ask about it. And, I'm just happy he was able to see a lot of people prior to passing, and I think about him daily, really, still, interestingly enough, you know. At first I just felt so bad for him. I felt sorry for what happened with him, but, it's life. And I have to realize that I can't question that, and I have to accept what happened and move on, if you will, and move on, and just like enjoy his memories, just remember, who he was and what he was about. And that's great. That's great to think about him and the things he used to say, and, his texts and all that. So yeah, we spent a lot of time in Buffalo because we used to spend summers in Buffalo. So that brought a lot of us closer together, because during the summer it was even less of us in numbers there than before. And so that brought us closer to a lot of the locals in Buffalo. And of course, our crew from New York, from different parts of the state, kind of just stuck together. But yeah, that was an amazing, amazing man.
Yeah, that is great, because I think the connection we have on Saturdays is, what he would have liked to have seen,
Yeah.
right? Is us getting together, just talking about things, talking about life, talking about anything,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah, definitely. If he was alive, he would be a big part of that. You know what I mean?
Oh,
And sometimes I
100%.
am like, wait a minute, was there something I could have said? You know, it's like when Frank says, like, when he saw him, he thought that because of his weight, like, that's like, it hit him, because he's like, it's the same situation that he saw himself in him. And I just, but like I said, there's nothing that we can do or say at this point, but to just kind of enjoy the fact that I'm happy I met him. We're both from Kingston, Jamaica. Never met him there, but uh, we just came. We migrated different times and just somehow connected.
Yeah. I mean, he's a great brother, and I'm glad we're keeping it going and keeping him alive within us, and,
Mhm.
his family,
Yeah, for sure.
that he left behind, his kids and his wife.
For sure.
I definitely
For sure.
appreciate that.
Definitely.
We're going to pivot just a little bit
Mhm.
and talk about our career reflections, right? Explore, when you went to state up until today, because I think while you're at state, you did journalism, which, brought on I think, because I came 3 years later, brought on the Trevor Dane personality. And then up until today,
Yeah.
all of that journey.
And I don't mean to cut
Is
you.
there
Interesting enough,
something
because
that you'd
some
like to
people thought
share?
that was my real name. I guess people who didn't take classes with me that thought, but
It'd be bad
people
if
in
the
New York.
professor say, "Is Trevor Dane here? Is Trevor Dane here?"
But yes, yeah.
We all did something different, right? That was your major, and all the things you did up to today, where you've been in this I think career for 30 years now, almost 30 years.
Well, I started it in Buffalo, so it's total about 34, 35 years now.
Okay. So if you want to,
Yeah.
tell your
Oh,
audience.
yeah. So I actually thought I was going to eventually be doing radio somewhere during that time. I even I think I did have an interview with the WBLK. No, it was I forgot the name of the station in Buffalo. BLS. No, BLS is New York. I think
Is
BLK. I
oh
think it's called whatever the black station was in Buffalo at the time. But it just based on what they were looking for, what they were talking about, it just didn't seem like a viable career to go into at that time. And I actually just kind of sort of fell into through a fraternity brother. I was walking after I graduated. I was walking on campus, and he was, I ran into a fraternity brother and he asked what I was doing. What I was doing. I was telling him that I was, passing my resumes out. At the time, you had to mail your resumes and so on. And he took me to someone with a program that worked with high school and middle school children from the college, and that just, I got that job, and from that at that point, it just kind of the what I the fact that you're able to help less fortunate people, and being like the first out of my family to go to college and encountering a number of African Americans and others who are the first who are entering that realm, and the help that I've received in doing that through the counselor, Mr. Tassi, um, uh, and how it kind of encouraged me to succeed. I started doing that same thing with others. And to this day, I have people reach out to me and thank me for helping them do something, because it could be somebody who's working on trying, getting a GED, and they're like, I just need a GED to get a job, if you will, right? And then they realize that, oh, I got a GED, I can go to college. And now this person is a college grad who never thought about college or saw themselves even going there. And, it's interesting. You might even see somebody who comes from, the Caribbean 2, 3 years ago. And they're like, okay, I'm going to get me a nursing aid job and so on and so on. And then you're able to show them how much more they can do, or what they can accomplish with just doing these things, and the fact that there's aid that you can receive where you're not spending a lot of money, if you will, or you don't have to spend anything at all to attain a college degree. So I sort of accidentally fell into it, but it was destined. I think it was destined.
yeah, sorry. I was gonna say I don't know if any of these things are accident,
Exactly.
right? Because the journey you've taken, right? All those things that you have done, kind of lines you up for this, even if you couldn't see it,
Yeah, it's true.
right?
Yeah,
So
it's
I'm
true.
not gonna say it's an accident,
I got you.
because you have, I remember when you were on the football field, well, soccer,
Mhm.
for those who thinking we're talking about the real football, but the soccer
Yeah.
field,
Yeah.
right? You used to have people calling you professor, right?
Yeah.
And that was because of all the things that you would be educating people on,
Mhm.
about what they can do, how they can do, all the things that's available to them and stuff like that.
Yes. Yeah.
Which was a great thing. So I would not throw the word accident with what you're doing.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
So see, because I don't want us to get disconnected. I hope we don't,
Mhm.
because I set the time for a certain,
Got you.
I wanted to get certain things in,
Mhm.
and stuff like that. But let me see. I had a couple things else that I wanted to follow up on.
Mhm.
This podcast itself, I wanted to tell your guys' story, because of the long last friendship that you've had for so long, right? And I think I said this to one of the brothers on earlier, that it would be a shame for us to not to share these stories, because if it can help a person out there, see something, from all the knowledge you guys are dropping, because you don't find people, such a large group, right? That known each other for almost 40 years and are still connecting, still sharing, still trying to help each other out. All of those type of things. You don't find that,
Yeah.
because I remember being in my job and I mentioned to someone that, I'm on this conversation every Saturday and I look forward to it. Right. And these are with people that we've known for over 30 years. And they're like, what? I mean, I know somebody, a few years ago and we can't even find time to get back and chat with each other. I haven't seen the person over 2 years.
Yeah. It's true. It's pretty impressive actually. That's why I look forward to it myself, and it's like you mentioned earlier, Tennyson is the string or the catalyst for this. Yes.
Yeah. And he will definitely be missed. And, I would be remiss if, I didn't say thank you to his family for sharing him with us as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Because he was really a good brother.
Definitely.
Coming close to closing, is there anything else you'd like to, share? I mean, you hurt your knee, you didn't get the contract you needed for the, the Arsenal.
Stop me from going pro.
A lot of the brothers may not know this.
Well, even with that, I'm looking forward to the spring because I missed last spring, but I'm going back to playing every Sunday morning. I go out to the parade grounds in Brooklyn and early morning and play for about an hour and a half. So I'm gonna get back to that because even if I can't do what I used to do, just being able to exercise and get that sweat and that running, if you will, and it's very, very important. More important now than back then. For us, to be active. So, uh, you know, once again, it's interesting how I ended up in Buffalo. Once again, family connection was one, and I was playing soccer in high school, and so interesting enough, I mentioned Mr. Tassi before. Mr. Tassi actually graduated from my high school, and he played soccer at my high school. His name his name is actually on the wall in the high school because I guess they were champions in the '60s or something back then. So he actually came to the school to recruit the soccer team, and he came and he spoke to the soccer team, and myself along with 6 or 7 of the guys saying, "Oh, we're going to Buffalo." I'm the only one that ended up there. Then Pedro came in that following January. He came to Buffalo.
Because Pedro went to the same high school, right?
Pedro went to me and Pedro went to Sunday school together, high school together, and college together. That's an interesting fact. That's an interesting high school. I mean, Sunday. We went to Sunday school. Though. I remember him from Sunday school because his mother and my mother went to the same church. We went to high school together and college. It's very interesting. It's an interesting thing. But yeah,
Until they're close up to today.
Exactly, we're still cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah, man.
Well, I want to say, thank you again for, taking the time to join, in this journey, this telling the story about the Brotherhood, that started in Buffalo, some a little longer, but, the group that grew in Buffalo. With this session, we're trying to get as many of the individuals to come on and, tell their stories. A lot of the questions are similar, but the answers are going to be different.
Of course.
Because everybody get a different, a different experience from it.
Yeah. And I remember my first apartment was $84 a month back in the 1800s.
I don't know if our audience heard that. Say it again.
My first apartment, myself, Monsell, I don't say last names, Frank, and Danny. Her monthly rent was $84. But I guess in future episodes you hear about Welly Well and all that and how we survived being poor college students.
Well, it is a part of the experience.
It is a part
right?
of the experience,
everything you had to go through to survive.
In fact, that we shared, we learned how to share amongst each other because, if one of us is eating, all of us are going to eat, you know what I mean? And we were all poor.
If there was enough,
We couldn't afford.
if there was enough money in the couch, if there enough money in the couch, it would be a couple of OEs.
Yes, that's a given. That was a good thing about Buffalo. Sometimes you have to go down a level from OE. You might have to spend 99 cents 40. Heels.
I guess you do what you gotta do.
You gotta do what you gotta do. Made us who we are.
It made us resilient.
Yes, sir.
All right. Again, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you again for for bringing the candid conversation, the inspiration for some of the younger ones who might be listening to know that all the things that we went through and did and are doing today, those are some of the things that we're trying to put out there. We're trying to put positive out there,
Sure.
because if we can help somebody, we will help them. All right.
All right.
In future episodes, we'll continue hearing from the rest of the group. We'll dive deep into stories, different perspectives, and so on. So again, thank you for tuning into A Conversation with Rad. I hope today's discussion sparks something new for you and serve as an inspiration to find time to endure in friendship. All right. So again, until next time, before I let this, until next time.
Hold on. You owe me, son. You owe me. And your boys, your boys owe me too. It wouldn't be here if it wasn't because of my apartment. You know what I mean?
Yo, I didn't touch that part, man. I was off. I had to run out for a minute. I was like, oh, shoot, I gotta. Man, I was about to bring that up. I was like, yo.
I heard you all.
The dude was Chuck Litter. What's his name? Chuck Willery?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The newlywed game?
Yeah. The dude, like, yo, for real.
You said that was Trev before the newlywed game came out.
It was real life. It was no TV show.
Real, man. I don't know if I missed Trev's basketball career, man. Your brother wasn't. I don't know if he talked about Reese Street.
We didn't talk about the basketball at all. We didn't even talk about my NBA career. That was wrong. You know what I mean?
I'm like, yo, what about the ball? Yo, Trevor with a ball. Yo,
word up, man. I totally forgot about that part. All sports, son. Football. I didn't even talk about football.
Oh, look at that. I'm telling you, man.
I got a picture tackling somebody on football field.
That's right.
I think something that would be good with this podcast too is if you could, like, for example, these old pictures and so on from back in Buffalo. Every now and then you could just have a picture just kind of come up. You know what I mean? Especially if you're talking about these people. You know what I'm saying? An old picture.
And we definitely will, because there's ways that we can actually insert things into these. So we can definitely do that. I think Frank has a lot of pictures, so we can actually immerse some of those in here. So we'll definitely be doing it, but I just want to say, Ook, I did not know my brother responsible for
it's two boys.
What I see today.
What's up, LG?
I don't know if I need to call a lifeline and say, is this true?
I don't know, Uki. I was talking about how we used to furnish our apartments from the streets. You get an apartment and we used to just be like, yo, we need a couch. You drive around, purchase a couch.
Oh, you know what they say? One man's treasure, one man's garbage is another man's treasure.
Man, we even had a TV as a stand for another TV. The big one wasn't working, so we had to just use it as a stand.
Yo, see how they fooled us? I was like, yo, this dude got 2 TVs.
That ain't working, son. That's furniture.
That's right.
That's props.
Oh, man.
Oh, my goodness, man.
Hold on. Those were the days, boy.
They were,
yeah.
Oh,
I gotta say, man, Tennyson would pass something and he think he could use it. He'd be like, yo, this picture would look good on the wall over there, man. Like, okay, man, throw it up, bro.
Yo, I didn't touch that part, man. I was off. I had to run out for a minute. I was like, oh, shoot, I gotta tune in. Man, I was about to bring that up. I was like, yo.
He's like, man.
What happened to yo? The dude was Chuck Litter. Willery, dude from
Man.
Oh, man.
Yeah. The dude
That's funny, man. Wow.
Like, yo.
Man,
For real.
Trev, yo, I heard you talk about when you mentioned Trevor Day,
Yes.
and my thing with Trevor
We
Day, I
create
used to
these
always,
things, man.
when I see Trevor Day,
Oh,
I'm like always
for real.
Yeah.
For real, man. Yo, I don't know if I missed Trev's basketball career, man, because your brother was on. I don't know if he talked about Reese Street. He used the ball on Reese Street. Yo,
Oh
man.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I heard you talk
man.
about the soccer field. I'm like, yo,
Yeah,
what
people
the
thought it was my
Walker?
last
No,
name
Trevor
for
with
real.
a Walker. I'm
and
telling you, man.
So give me 1 second.
Yo,
We can stay on, but I'm going to stop the
Recording, no
recording.
problem.
I
yes,
like these. I like these candid piece for
oh,
the
look at
end.
Yeah.
that. I'm telling
I
you.
didn't.
I'm
I
telling
didn't
you,
plan
man.
this,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna have to get people to come in the same way
Oh,
for any
yes.
I
other
think this would be good.
conversation.
I think this would be good. You should send if you could send out
That's right.
an invite for audience. You know what I mean? And then at the end, you kind of bring them in like this to kind of like tie it all together. Because you
Yeah.
jog memories too by
Though we hit a technical snag, the stories don't end here. We'll dive back into the memories, Reese Park, the pickup games, and the bonds we built, because they deserve to be heard. Thank you for being part of this journey where brotherhood, reflection, and remembrance meet. Let's continue the conversation and keep the legacy alive. Stay connected, follow the podcast, share your own memories, and join us in keeping these stories alive. Please subscribe and engage with us on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts.